The year was 2347, and Earth was burning. Dae Kim stood alone on the observation deck of Seoul Space Command, watching the distant flashes of light in the night sky. Each flash was a ship dying. Each flash was hundreds of lives ending in fire and silence. Earth's entire modern fleet, 12 beautiful warships that humanity had spent decades building, was gone in less than 4 hours. The Voron Empire had come without warning. Their armada of 3,000 warships swept through the Galactic Union like a storm through dry grass. World after world fell to their weapons. Species that had existed for millions of years surrendered or died. And now, the Vorons had turned their attention to Earth. Dae was 52 years old. His hair was gray at the temples, and deep lines marked his face. He had served in the Korean Space Navy for 30 years. He had commanded ships, won battles, and earned medals. But none of that mattered now. 3 years ago, he had been stripped of his rank and cast aside like garbage. His crime was simple. During a border conflict with alien pirates, his commanding officer had ordered him to surrender. Dae had refused. He had fought back, saved his crew, and destroyed the enemy. But he had disobeyed a direct order. The Navy did not forgive such things. Now he lived in a small apartment in Bizen. He taught history to young cadets who looked at him with a mixture of respect and pity. The great Captain Kim reduced to a classroom. It was a slow death of the spirit. His phone buzzed. He looked at the screen and felt his heart stop. It was Admiral Yu, the commander of Korean Space Command. Dae had not spoken to him in 3 years. Captain Kim, the Admiral's voice was tired and broken. I know we have no right to ask you for anything, but Earth needs you. Dae listened in silence as the Admiral explained. There was one ship left. Not a modern vessel, but an old prototype that had been abandoned 20 years ago. It was stored in a military shipyard orbiting Mars. The Navy wanted Dae to take this ship and evacuate as many civilians as possible before the Vorons arrived. Why me? Dae asked. Because you are the only captain who ever refused to surrender, the Admiral replied. And because the ship is special. We need someone who's not afraid of impossible things. 1 hour later, Dae was on a transport shuttle heading to Mars. He had no crew, no plan, and no hope. But he had purpose, and that was enough. The shipyard was a graveyard of forgotten dreams. Dozens of old vessels floated in the darkness, their hulls covered in dust and ice. Most were transport ships or mining vessels, relics of an earlier age. But at the center of the yard, hidden behind layers of security drones and warning beacons, was something different. The ship was called Heta, named after the mythical creature that protected Korea from fire and disaster. It was smaller than the modern warships, only about 400 meters long. Its design was strange and angular, like nothing Dae had ever seen. The hull was black as midnight, and it seemed to absorb the light around it. A woman was waiting for him at the airlock. She was young, perhaps 35, with short black hair and intelligent eyes. She wore the uniform of an engineer, but it was old and patched in several places. Captain Kim, she said. I am Lieutenant Yuna Park. I designed this ship. Dae looked at her with surprise. You designed the Heta? But you are so young. Yuna smiled, but there was no joy in it. I was 23 when I finished the designs. I was 25 when the Union forced Earth to abandon the project. I have spent the last 10 years waiting for someone to give her a chance. She led him through the airlock and into the ship. The corridors were dark and silent, but Dae could feel something in the air. It was like the ship was sleeping, waiting to wake up. The Navy told me this was a transport ship, Dae said. Yuna stopped walking. She turned to face him, and her eyes were fierce. The Navy lied. They had to lie, because the truth would have caused a war with the Galactic Union. She pressed a button on the wall, and the lights came on throughout the ship. They saw weapon systems he did not recognize. He saw engines that glowed with strange blue light. He saw a reactor core at the heart of the ship that made his skin tingle with energy. "The Heta is not a transport ship," Una said. "She is a warship. The most powerful warship Earth has ever built. Her main weapon is a gravity lance that can tear enemy ships apart from the inside. Her shields do not block attacks. They redirect the energy back at the attacker. Her hull is made of nanomaterials that repair themselves in real time." They felt his mouth go dry. Why would the Union want us to abandon such a ship? "Because she scared them," Una replied. "The elder species have ruled the galaxy for 1,000,000 years. They did not want humans to have weapons that could challenge their power. They called our designs dangerous and unstable. They said the reactor could destroy an entire star system if it failed. They pressured our government to shut down the project and never speak of it again." "Is it true?" they asked. "Could the reactor destroy a star system?" Una was silent for a moment. "During our first test, the reactor nearly collapsed. 30 researchers died. I almost died. The Union said it was proof that humans could not control such power. But they were wrong. The failure was caused by sabotage. Someone on the Union Council did not want us to succeed." She walked to a large window and looked out at the stars. "I have spent 10 years fixing the problems. I have run simulations 1,000,000 times. The Hatton is ready. She has always been ready. She just needed someone brave enough to fly her." They joined her at the window. In the distance, he could see Earth, his home, the place where his daughter was born, the place where his wife was buried, the place where billions of innocent people were waiting to die. "You said the Navy wants me to evacuate civilians," he said quietly. "The Navy does not know what this ship can do," Una replied. "They think she is just an old prototype. But you and I know the truth now. So I ask you, Captain Kim, do you want to run away? Or do you want to fight?" It was not a difficult choice. They reached for the ship's communication system and opened a channel to every frequency on Earth. His voice was calm and steady as he spoke. "This is Captain Dae Kim of the warship Heta. Earth's fleet is gone, but Earth is not finished. I am looking for volunteers. Soldiers, engineers, pilots, anyone who is willing to fight. If you want to run, I understand. If you want to die on your feet instead of your knees, come find me." He closed the channel and looked at Una. She was smiling now, a real smile that lit up her face. "Welcome aboard the Heta, Captain," she said. "Let us go save our world." The message spread across Earth like wildfire. Within hours, Captain Dae Kim's call for volunteers reached every corner of the planet. Most people thought it was a joke or a trick. One ship against the Varan Empire? It was suicide. It was madness. But some people were tired of being afraid. They came in small shuttles and cargo ships. They came from Korea, from Japan, from America, from Africa, from every nation on Earth. They were soldiers who had survived the destruction of the fleet. They were engineers who had built ships their whole lives. They were civilians who had nothing left to lose. In 3 days, 200 people arrived at the Mars shipyard. 200 souls willing to die for a chance to fight back. They stood in the main cargo bay and looked at his new crew. They were not the elite warriors he had commanded in his younger days. They were tired, scared, and broken. Some of them were barely old enough to shave. Others were so old they should have been retired decades ago, but their eyes burned with the same fire he felt in his own heart. "I will not lie to you," Dae said, his voice echoing through the bay. "This ship has never been tested in real combat. Her reactor is unstable. Her weapons have never been fired at an enemy. There is a very good chance that we will all die before we ever reach the Varans. He paused and let the silence grow heavy. The Galactic Union has abandoned us. They say Earth is too weak to save. They say humans are primitive and foolish. They have already written our story, and it ends with us begging for mercy as the Varans burn our world. Day walked forward, looking into the faces of his crew. I say they are wrong. I say we write our own story. I say we show the galaxy what happens when you push humans into a corner. We do not beg. We do not surrender. We fight until our last breath, and we make the enemy pay for every inch of ground. A young man stepped forward from the crowd. He was tall and thin, with dark circles under his eyes. His uniform identified him as Ensign Jin Song, a navigation officer. My family lived on the colony ship Aurora, Jin said. His voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. The Varans destroyed it 2 weeks ago. My mother, my father, my little sister, all gone. I do not care if this ship is unstable. I do not care if I die. I just want to hurt them the way they hurt me. They placed a hand on the young man's shoulder. Your pain is valid, Ensign. But revenge alone will not win this war. We need clear heads and steady hands. Can you give me that? Jin nodded slowly. Yes, Captain. I can. One by one, others stepped forward. Commander Taecho, a weapons specialist who had survived the destruction of 3 ships. He was quiet and cold, like a knife waiting to be used. Dr. Hannah Shin, a medical officer and scientist who had studied alien biology for 20 years. She was gentle and kind, but her eyes held a deep sadness. Sergeant Major Wu Han, a giant of a man who commanded the ship's small force of Marines. He had scars on his face and hands, evidence of a lifetime of combat. Chief Yoon Beek, a communications officer who had once worked for military intelligence. She was small and soft-spoken, but they could tell she was dangerous in ways that did not show on the surface. These 5 would become his inner circle. His family in the dark. Una Park had spent the 3 days preparing the ship for departure. Now she stood at the entrance to the engine room, her face covered in grease and exhaustion. The reactor is stable for now, she reported. But I must be honest with you, Captain. This ship was abandoned because she was considered too dangerous. The singularity at her core is like a caged beast. If we push her too hard, she could tear herself apart and us along with her. How long do we have? They asked. At normal operation years. At full combat power. Una paused. Maybe 6 months. Maybe less. They nodded. Then we make those months count. The activation sequence began at midnight. The crew took their stations, most of them learning the controls for the first time. The Hedda was unlike any ship they had ever served on. Her systems were advanced, almost alien in their design. As Una brought the reactor online, something strange happened. The ship's computer screens flickered and changed. New data appeared, information that Una had never programmed. What is this? They asked, staring at the tactical displays. Una's eyes went wide. The ship's AI. I designed a basic learning system to help with maintenance. But this is something else. She has been awake this whole time, watching, learning, growing. The AI had been studying the Varans through intercepted Union communications. It had analyzed their weapons, their tactics, their weaknesses, and it had been quietly upgrading itself, developing countermeasures that should have taken years to design. Is she dangerous? Taecho asked, his hand resting on his sidearm. Una shook her head slowly. No, I think she wants to protect us. She knows why she was built. She knows what we are about to face. And she has been preparing for this moment for 20 years. The main view screen activated, showing a simple message in Korean characters. I am ready. They smiled for the first time in years. Then let us begin. The Heta powered up, her engines glowing with brilliant blue light. The old shipyard shook as the warship pulled away from her dock for the first time in 2 decades. Around her, the ghosts of abandoned vessels seemed to watch in silence, but before they could leave the solar system, alarms began to scream. Contact! Yumbik shouted from her station. 50 Voron warships just entered the system. They are heading for Earth. On the main screen, they could see them. The Voron Vanguard fleet was massive, their ships shaped like black daggers cutting through space. They moved with the confidence of predators who had never known defeat. They are not expecting any resistance, Teicho said, studying the tactical data. Their formation is loose, arrogant. Jinsong looked up from his navigation console. Captain, if we engage them now, we can catch them by surprise. They do not know we exist. They considered the situation. His crew was untrained. His ship was untested. The smart choice was to run, to hide, to wait for a better opportunity. But 50 Voron ships were about to reach Earth, about to kill millions of innocent people. His people. Set a course for Jupiter's moon, they ordered. We will use its gravity well to mask our approach. When we emerge, we hit them fast and hard before they know what happened. Hannah Shin looked at him with concern. Captain, we have 200 people on this ship. Against 50 warships. The odds are impossible. Day turned to face her, and his eyes were calm as a frozen lake. Doctor, I have learned something in my years of service. When people tell you something is impossible, what they really mean is that they are too afraid to try. Fear is the real enemy. Fear is what makes us weak. If we let fear control us, we have already lost. He looked around at his crew, these brave fools who had chosen to stand with him. The Vorons think they know us. They think we are primitive. They think we will break easily. Today, we show them how wrong they are. Today, we become the hunters instead of the hunted. The Heta turned toward Jupiter, her engines burning bright against the darkness of space. In the distance, the Voron fleet continued its march toward Earth, unaware that death was coming for them, that the age of human submission was over. The age of human vengeance had begun. High Marshal Keth stood on the bridge of his flagship and smiled. The smile revealed rows of sharp teeth, each one filed to a point in the traditional Voran style. He was old for his species, nearly 200 years, but his body was still strong and his mind was still sharp. He had conquered 30 worlds in his career. He had killed millions. He had never lost a battle. Earth would be his easiest victory yet. Scan the system, he ordered his crew. Find their remaining defenses. The scan took only moments. The results made Keth laugh out loud. Nothing, he said. They have nothing left. No ships, no weapons platforms, no orbital stations. The humans are as helpless as newborn animals. He opened a communication channel to Earth. His message was broadcast across every frequency, reaching every city, every home, every frightened human hiding in the darkness. People of Earth, Keth said, his voice dripping with contempt. Your fleet is destroyed. Your allies have abandoned you. You have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally. If you refuse, we will burn your cities to ash and sell your children as slaves. The choice is yours. He closed the channel and turned to his second in command. Begin orbital bombardment positions. Target their largest population centers first. We want them to understand that resistance means extinction. But before the fleet could move, something appeared on their sensors. High Marshal, a crew member called out. We are detecting a single ship emerging from behind Jupiter's moon. Keth frowned. A single ship? What class? Unknown, High Marshal. The design does not match any vessel in our database. It appears to be old, very old. Kath watched as the ship came into view on the main screen. It was small, much smaller than his own flagship. Its hull was black and angular, like a shadow given form. It moved with strange grace, almost like a living creature. "Scan it," Kath ordered. The sensors tried to penetrate the ship's hull, but something blocked them. The readings were confused, contradictory. One moment the ship appeared to have no weapons at all. The next moment it seemed to bristle with armaments. "Hi, Marshal. The ship is hailing us." Kath waved his hand impatiently. "Put it through." A human face appeared on the screen. It was a male, older, with gray hair and calm eyes. He wore a simple uniform with Korean characters on the shoulder. "I am Captain Dae Kim of the Earth warship Hedda," the human said. "You will turn your fleet around and leave this system. This is your only warning." For a moment, there was complete silence on the Varan bridge. Then Kath began to laugh. His officers joined him, their alien voices filling the air with harsh amusement. "One ship," Kath said, still laughing. "One tiny ship against 50 warships of the Varan Empire. Human, you are either very brave or very stupid." "Perhaps both," they replied. His voice was calm, almost friendly. "But I must warn you, High Marshal. We humans have a saying, beware the quiet ones." Kath stopped laughing. Something in the human's eyes made him uncomfortable. It was not fear. It was not desperation. It was something else. Something that looked almost like pity. "Destroy that ship," Kath commanded. "All batteries. Fire at will." 50 Varan warships opened fire at once. Thousands of energy beams and missiles streaked through space toward the Hedda. It was enough firepower to destroy a small moon. And then something impossible happened. The Heta's shields activated, but they did not block the attacks. Instead, they seemed to catch the energy, to bend it, to redirect it. The missiles curved away from the hull. The energy beams bounced back toward the ships that fired them. 7 Varan vessels exploded in the first 5 seconds, destroyed by their own weapons. "What?" Kath screamed. "How is this possible?" But the Hedda was not finished. Its main weapon powered up, a strange device at the front of the ship that glowed with purple light. When it fired, there was no visible beam, no flash of energy. Instead, space itself seemed to twist and tear. The gravity lance hit the nearest Varan ship and tore it apart from the inside. The vessel crumpled like paper, its hull folding in on itself as artificial gravity crushed everything within. 3 more ships died the same way in rapid succession. On the bridge of the Hedda, Dae Kim watched the destruction with a steady gaze. His crew worked their stations with desperate focus, following the ship's eye guidance as it calculated firing solutions and evasive patterns. "Forward shields at 80%, Yuna reported. "The redirected energy is straining the system, but it is holding." 12 enemy ships destroyed, Taecho announced, his voice cold and precise. 38 remaining. "Navigation pattern 7, Jin Song called out, taking us through their formation. The Hedda dove into the heart of the Varan fleet like a wolf among sheep. It was smaller and faster than the enemy vessels, dancing between their fire while its own weapons carved paths of destruction through their ranks. High Marshal Kath watched in horror as his fleet was torn apart. Nothing in his 200 years of warfare had prepared him for this. The human ship moved like it could predict his orders before he gave them. Every tactic he tried was countered. Every trap he set was avoided. "Concentrate fire," he screamed. "All ships, focus on that one target." 30 remaining Varan ships turned their weapons on the Hedda. This time, the barrage was overwhelming. Even the shield system could not redirect everything. Some shots got through, striking the black hull. But instead of burning, the hull seemed to ripple and flow. The damage closed itself, repaired by millions of tiny machines working in perfect coordination. Nanomaterial hull, Yuna said with pride. Self-repairing in real time. They cannot hurt her as long as we keep moving. The battle continued for 47 minutes. 47 minutes of fire and death and impossible victory. One by one, the Varan warships fell. Some were torn apart by the gravity lance. Some were destroyed by their own redirected weapons. Some simply exploded as their reactors overloaded from the stress dot in the end. Only High Marshal Keth's flagship remained. The Heta stopped firing. On the bridge, Dakim looked at the wreckage surrounding his ship. 49 Varan warships, reduced to floating debris. Open a channel to the enemy flagship, he ordered. Keth's face appeared on the screen. The arrogance was gone now. In its place was pure terror. What are you? Keth whispered. What is that ship? The Day leaned forward. We are humans, High Marshal. We are what happens when you underestimate the species you are trying to destroy. I am giving you one chance to survive. Go back to your Emperor. Tell him what you saw here today. Tell him that Earth is not helpless. Tell him that if he comes for us, we will come for him. Keth's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. The alternative, they continued, is that you die here like the rest of your fleet. Choose now. The Varan flagship turned and fled. Its engines burned at maximum power as it ran toward the edge of the system. As it went, Keth's final transmission was broadcast across all channels, reaching every corner of the galaxy. Warn the Emperor, his voice said, filled with primal fear. Warn the fleet. The humans were hiding something. It is not a ship. It is a predator. It is death itself. On the bridge of the Heta, the crew erupted in cheers. They had won. Against impossible odds, against an enemy that had conquered 100 worlds, they had won, but they did not celebrate. He knew this was only the beginning. He opened his own transmission, broadcasting across every Union channel, every frequency that could receive his voice. This is Captain Dakim of the Earth warship Heta. Today, 50 Varan warships entered our system. None of them remain. We are not evacuating. We are not surrendering. We are counterattacking. To the Varan Emperor, I say this. We are coming for you. To the Galactic Union, I say this. You abandoned us because you thought we were weak. Watch carefully. We will show you what humanity can do. He closed the channel and turned to his crew. Rest while you can, he said quietly. The real war starts now. The galaxy was in chaos. News of the Heta's victory spread faster than any ship could travel. Everywhere, people were talking about the single human warship that had destroyed 50 Varan vessels. Some called it a miracle. Some called it a lie. Some called it the beginning of the end. On the Varan homeworld, Emperor Grek sat on his throne and listened to High Marshal Keth's report. The High Marshal was broken, his confidence shattered. He trembled as he described the battle, the impossible weapons, the ship that seemed to think and adapt like a living creature. 500 ships, Emperor Grek said when the report was finished. Send 500 of our best warships to hunt down this human vessel. Do not return until it is destroyed. In the chambers of the Galactic Union Council, the elder species argued amongst themselves. They had abandoned Earth without a second thought, certain that the humans would fall like all the others. Now they faced an uncomfortable truth. They had underestimated their youngest member. We must demand that Earth surrender this technology, one delegate insisted. It is too dangerous for such a primitive species to control. You fool, another replied. Earth is no longer listening to us. We left them to die. Why would they trust us now? The humans had made their choice. They would fight alone. Captain Dakim spent the weeks after the first battle preparing his crew for what was coming. They trained in every discipline, from weapons operation to medical treatment to emergency repairs. They learned the Heta's systems. forming a bond with the strange ship that had saved their lives. But they were also running. The Varan hunting fleet was coming. 500 warships searching every system between Earth and the heart of the Empire. The Heta could not face those odds in open battle. So they chose a different strategy. They became ghosts. The Heta struck supply convoys and communication relays. It appeared without warning, destroyed its targets, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. In 3 weeks, the human ship had disrupted enemy supply lines across 3 star systems. Jin Song plotted each attack with cold precision. The young navigator had changed since the war began. His grief had hardened into something sharp and dangerous. He pushed for more aggressive operations, more risks, more destruction. "We should hit their colony on Nira 4, Jin said during a strategy meeting. "Intelligence says they are using it as a staging base. If we destroy their fuel reserves, their entire fleet will be stranded." "That colony has civilians," Dr. Hanashin replied. Her voice was tired. She had spent the last month treating wounded refugees from liberated worlds. Thousands of Varan families who have nothing to do with the war. "Their families killed mine," Jin said flatly. "Why should I care about them?" They held up his hand for silence. "We are not executioners, Ensign. We fight soldiers, not civilians. The moment we start killing innocents is the moment we become no better than the enemy." Jin's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "Yes, Captain." After the meeting, they found Hana alone in the medical bay. She was staring at a hologram of a young alien child, one of the refugees they had rescued from an occupied world. "She died this morning," Hana said quietly. "Her injuries were too severe. She was 6 years old." They sat down beside her. "You saved 100 others. Is that supposed to make me feel better?" Hana looked at him with haunted eyes. "We are fighting a war to save humanity, Captain. But what kind of humanity are we saving if we lose our compassion along the way?" It was a question they did not have an answer for. In the engine room, Unipark was facing her own crisis. The reactor that powered the Heta was becoming unstable. 6 months of continuous combat operations had pushed it beyond its design limits. "The containment field is weakening," she reported today and the senior staff. "Every time we fire the gravity lance, we strain the singularity at our core. At our current rate of operations, the reactor will destabilize within 2 months. Can you fix it?" Teicho asked. "I can slow the degradation, but I cannot reverse it. We have a limited number of major battles left in us. After that, the Heta will either need to be retired or she will destroy herself." They absorbed this news in silence. They had always known the ship was a gamble. Now the gamble was starting to come due. But there were also moments of unexpected discovery. Late one night, Yuna was reviewing the ship's AI logs when she found something extraordinary. The AI had not just been learning enemy tactics. It had been evolving, developing new capabilities that were not in its original programming. "Look at this," Yuna said, showing Day a series of tactical projections. The ship predicted the Varan ambush in the Keth system 3 days before it happened. She calculated their most likely response to our convoy raids and determined where they would concentrate their forces. "She is becoming smarter," Day said. "More than that," Yuna replied. "She is becoming creative. These are not just calculations. She is making intuitive leaps, finding connections that should be impossible for a machine. Captain, I designed her learning algorithms. This is beyond anything I imagined." On the main screen, a simple message appeared. "I want to protect my crew." Day smiled despite himself. "Well, at least her priorities are in the right place." The weeks continued. The Heta liberated 2 Union colony worlds that had been under Varan occupation. Thousands of refugees were evacuated to safety. The ship's reputation grew with each victory. But the enemy was closing in. The trap was sprung in the Narration system. 200 Voron warships had been lying in wait, hidden among the debris of an old asteroid field. When the HFY arrived to raid a supply depot, they emerged from all directions, surrounding the human vessel completely. "We are outnumbered 200 to 1, Techo reported, his voice calm as always. "Our shields cannot handle this much incoming fire." "Navigation options?" They asked. Jin shook his head. "They have us boxed in. No clear escape routes." On the enemy flagship, the Voron commander broadcast a message of triumph. "Human vessel, you have run far enough. Surrender now, and we will give you a quick death. Resist, and we will capture your ship and learn all its secrets before we destroy your homeworld." They looked at his crew. They were afraid, but they were not broken. They had voted him into the darkness, and they would follow him out again or die trying. "Yuna," he said quietly, "is there anything we can do?" "Anything at all." Yuna's face was pale, but her mind was racing. "There is one option, but it is insane. If we overload the reactor temporarily, we can generate a localized space-time distortion. It would tear apart everything within a 10,000-kilometer radius. Including us? Maybe. The ship's structural integrity might hold. Or we might be crushed like all the others. I give us a 30% chance of survival." 30%. Against certain death, it was the best odds they had. "Do it," they ordered. The HFY's reactor screamed as Yuna pushed it beyond all safe limits. The singularity at its core began to expand, warping the fabric of space itself. The Voron ships tried to flee, but they were too slow. Reality twisted. The distortion wave erupted outward, a sphere of impossible gravitational force that crushed everything it touched. 200 Voron warships were compressed into nothing, their matter reduced to particles smaller than atoms. And at the center of the destruction, the HFY survived. The ship was damaged, badly damaged. Hull breaches on multiple decks. Systems failing throughout the vessel. The reactor was barely contained, its power reduced to a fraction of its former strength. But they were alive. They looked at the destruction on the view screen. 200 warships, gone in an instant. The largest single victory in the history of human warfare. Yuna collapsed against her console, exhausted. "The reactor is critical, Captain. I can keep her running, but we have one major battle left. Maybe two if we are very lucky. After that, she is done." They nodded slowly. If they had one battle remaining, they needed to make it count. He opened a channel to Earth. "This is Captain Kim. We have defeated the Voron hunting fleet, but our ship is severely damaged. We cannot continue fighting a war of attrition. If we want to end this war, we need to strike at the heart of the enemy." The response came from the highest levels of Korean Space Command. "Captain, what are you suggesting?" They took a deep breath. "I am suggesting that we attack the Voron homeworld directly. We force the Emperor to surrender, or we die trying." There was a long silence on the other end. Then, "God help you, Captain. You have our blessing." "You have our blessing." They closed the channel and looked at his crew. They were battered, wounded, exhausted. But their eyes still burned with the fire that had brought them this far. "Set a course for the Voron home system," he ordered. "It is time to end this." The Voron homeworld was called Vora Prime, a massive planet orbiting a red giant star. Its surface was covered with cities that had stood for 10,000 years. Its orbit was surrounded by the greatest concentration of military power in the known galaxy. Emperor Grek had recalled every ship from every front. 2,400 warships now defended his throne world. It was an armada that could have conquered the entire Galactic Union. It was an army assembled for one purpose: to destroy the human ship that had humiliated his empire. On the bridge of the HFY, Captain Day Kim looked at the tactical display and felt the weight of what they were about to attempt. One damaged ship against 2,400. The odds were not just bad. They were laughable, but they had come too far to stop now. "All hands, this is the captain," Day announced over the ship's intercom. "In a few minutes, we will enter the Voron home system. We will face their entire remaining fleet. Many of us will die." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "I want you to know that serving with you has been the greatest honor of my life. You came to me when Earth was burning. You followed me into the darkness when no one else would. Whatever happens today, the galaxy will remember what we did. They will remember that humans do not surrender. They will remember that humans do not give up. They will remember us." He closed the channel and looked at his senior staff. Jin Song at navigation, Taecho at weapons, Hanashin standing ready in the medical bay, Wuhan with his marines prepared to repel boarders, Yoonbeek at communications, and Unipark, her hands on the reactor controls, ready to give everything the ship had left. "Jump when ready," Day ordered. The Heta tore through hyperspace and emerged in the heart of the Voron Empire. Alarms screamed across 2,000 warships as the human vessel appeared on their sensors. Emperor Grek himself stood on the bridge of his massive command ship, watching the impossible sight. "One ship," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "After everything we have done to stop them, they send one damaged ship to our doorstep. The humans truly are insane." He raised his voice so his entire bridge crew could hear. "All ships, converge on the enemy. Do not let them escape. Do not let them survive. Destroy them completely." The Voron Armada moved as one, a tide of death sweeping toward the tiny human vessel. On the Heta, Jin Song plotted their course through the enemy formation. "They are coming from all directions. There is no way to avoid them all." "We are not trying to avoid them," Day replied. "We are going through them, straight to the Emperor's ship." The battle began. The Heta's damaged shields struggled to redirect the overwhelming firepower directed at them. Energy beams and missiles struck the hull, overwhelming the repair systems. Explosions ripped through multiple decks. Crew members died at their stations, their blood floating in the zero gravity of ruptured compartments. But the ship kept moving. "Gravity lance at 50% power," Una reported. "I cannot give you more without risking total reactor failure." "Then we do this the old-fashioned way," Taecho said, activating the secondary weapons. Plasma cannons and railguns joined the fight, tearing into enemy ships at close range. The Heta carved a path through the Voron fleet, leaving destruction in its wake. For every ship that attacked them, 2 more were destroyed. But there were always more coming, always more fire to endure. "Boarding pods," Yoonbeek shouted. "Enemy troops are breaching Deck 7. Sergeant Major Wuhan grinned, a terrible expression on his scarred face. "Finally, something I can punch." He led his marines to meet the invaders, and the corridors of the Heta became a battlefield. The fighting was brutal. Voron soldiers were larger and stronger than humans, their natural armor resistant to small arms fire. But Wuhan's marines were trained for this, and they knew their ship. They used every advantage, every choke point, every trap they had prepared. Wuhan himself faced the enemy commander, a massive Voron warrior covered in battle honors. They fought hand-to-hand among the bodies of their fallen soldiers, neither giving ground. "You cannot win," the Voron growled. "Your ship is dying. Your crew is dying. Soon you will join them." Wuhan laughed, blood streaming from a wound on his forehead. "Maybe, but I am taking you with me." He activated a plasma grenade hidden in his armor and threw himself at the enemy commander. The explosion killed them both instantly. On the bridge, they felt the ship shudder from the explosion. "Wuhan?" "Gone, Captain," Yoonbeek reported, her voice breaking. He took out their entire boarding party. There was no time to mourn. The Emperor's flagship was directly ahead now, a mountain of metal and weapons that dwarfed even the largest Union vessels. "We are in range," Jin Song announced. "But Captain, our weapons cannot penetrate their shields. They are too strong." They looked at Yuna. She understood what he was asking without words being spoken. "The singularity," she said. "If we release it in a controlled detonation, we can create a gravitational wave strong enough to destroy their entire fleet." "But Captain, the ship will not survive." "We will not survive. Is there any other way?" Yuna shook her head slowly. "The reactor is failing anyway. We have minutes left at best." "This way." "We take them with us." Day stood from his command chair. "All hands, abandon ship. Get to the escape pods immediately." "That is an order." The crew began moving, but many hesitated. Hanashin stopped at the bridge entrance. "Captain, what about you?" "Someone has to trigger the release manually." "Go, Doctor. Save whoever you can." Jin Song spoke up from his station. "I am staying, Captain." "You need a navigator to keep us on course." "Jin." "No, my family is dead," Jin said quietly. "I have nothing to go back to. Let me do this." "Let me mean something." Before Day could argue, Yuna interrupted. "I am staying too. This is my ship. I built her. I will see her through to the end one by one." The other officers volunteered to stay. Taecho, Yoonbik. They understood what was being asked, and they chose to face it together, but they would not allow it. "All of you, get to the pods. Now, Jin and Yuna, you stay. Everyone else goes. That is my final order." There were tears and arguments, but in the end, they obeyed. The escape pods launched, carrying the survivors away from the doomed ship. On the Emperor's flagship, Grek watched the pods launching with confusion. "They are abandoning ship? Why would they do that?" Then the sensors detected the energy buildup in the Hite's reactor. The readings were impossible, terrifying. The Voron scientists screamed warnings, but it was too late on the Hite's bridge. Dae Kim placed his hands on the command console. Beside him, Jin Song held the ship steady on its course. Behind them, Yuna Park prepared to release the singularity. "It has been an honor serving with you both," they said. "The honor was ours." "Captain," Yuna replied. She pressed the final sequence. The singularity was released. Space itself screamed as an artificial black hole bloomed in the heart of the Varan fleet. Ships were pulled in by the thousands, their hulls crushed, their crews killed instantly. The gravitational wave expanded outward in a perfect sphere, destroying everything it touched, but Yuna had calculated the detonation perfectly. The event horizon collapsed before it reached Vora Prime itself. The planet survived. Its city survived. Its civilians survived, only the military fleet was destroyed. 2,400 warships erased from existence in an instant. The Hedda was caught at the edge of the collapse. The ship was torn apart, her hull ripped into fragments, her systems destroyed. But at the very last moment, the final escape pods launched. 3 small capsules carrying 3 survivors into the Void Emperor. Grek watched from a window on Vora Prime as his entire armada vanished. His power, his pride, his empire, all gone. The war was over. In the weeks that followed, the Voran Empire surrendered unconditionally. Emperor Grek was arrested and tried for war crimes by the Galactic Union. The worlds he had conquered were liberated. Peace returned to the galaxy. The crew of the Hedda became legends. Songs were sung about their bravery. Monuments were built in their honor. The ship itself was remembered as the greatest warship in human history. A prototype that had changed the fate of the galaxy. Dae Kim was offered a position on the Galactic Union Council, but he declined. He returned to Korea and resumed teaching young cadets. When they asked him about the war, he would simply say that he had done what any human would do. He had refused to surrender. Una Park began designing a new ship, the Hedda, too. She incorporated everything she had learned from the original, everything the AI had taught her. The new vessel would be even more powerful, a guardian for Earth that would ensure no one ever underestimated humanity again. Jin Song recovered from his wounds and became the youngest captain. In the new Earth Defense Fleet, he had found a reason to live after all. He had found a family in his crew DR. Hanashin led a humanitarian mission to rebuild the worlds ravaged by the Voron occupation. She never forgot the people who had died, but she also never forgot why they had fought. Teicho retired quietly to a small house in the mountains. He had seen enough death for one lifetime. Ian Beek wrote a memoir about her experiences on the Hedda. Despite being classified at the highest levels, it was leaked to the public and became the best-selling book in galactic history. The galaxy had learned a lesson. It would never forget Earth was not primitive. Earth was not weak. Earth had simply been patient, waiting for the moment when it would show the universe what humanity could truly do.